The Mark of the Leopard. From Baffling Mysteries number 13, January 1953. When love turns deadly, survival is just a scratch away. I stared at the young girl before me. This had been the third case within 3 weeks. Across her breast were the flaming scars of a leopard's claws. I dressed them as best I could, knowing full well that the scars would always be there, and that in this small, ice-bound village, a girl with a scar like hers would have no chance at marriage. As I looked at her, I could see that she was almost as beautiful as my wife Sonia. Dark, vibrant, with an enchanting red-lipped smile. That smile covered the fear that I could see in her eyes. Tell me, please, will I be scarred? Her earnest, dark eyes stared up at me. I'm afraid so, Giselle. Whatever has happened in this village, I don't know, but I mean to find out. You're the third beautiful young girl to come to me with a vivid scar like this. Why? The girl's eyes went blank. The leopard, doctor. The leopard. Her head fell back and she closed her eyes. There was a faint shrug as though she had given up all hope. Always the leopard, doctor. Her voice trailed off. I knew she was asleep from the sedative I had given her. Quickly I left the room. Outside the snow was falling. Even the house had a chill, despite the heaty fireplaces in every room. As I looked out the window, I could see the boarded-up windows and doors of my neighbors. On the snow-swept road that ran past my home were the marks of leopards' feet. Yet, in all the months I had spent in the superstition-bound village, I had never seen one of the spotted creatures. The back door to our small house sprang open, and there stood my wife. Her vibrancy and color went to my heart. I ran to her and buried my head in her shoulder. "Darling, I'm glad you're home." The leopard. She drew back, her hands on my shoulders. "Why, Ralph? You're afraid of old wives' tales. There are no leopards around here. I've never seen one, and neither have you." I took her hand and led her back to my office. The young girl lay still. Her breathing was gentle, but on her breast was the horrible scar. My wife's breath drew in a hiss. "Ralph, those are claw marks. What happened?" "She was brought in this morning by the villagers. She's the third young girl to be brought in the past 3 weeks. There are leopards in this vicinity. I don't want you to go out again alone. Never, do you understand?" She nodded dumbly, her eyes still, riveted on the breast of the young girl so quietly sleeping. He tried to get her throat, but he missed. I was pale as I thought of the beautiful woman who was my wife, carrying one of those scars. "What we have to do," I continued, "is to get the villagers together. Something has to be done. The men of the village will get their guns, and we'll go out and hunt these vicious creatures. Please don't go out again, sweetheart." Suddenly she became pale. "Don't hunt the leopards with guns. They might be killed that." I stared down at her. "What's the difference? They should be killed. They're killing children and trying to kill young girls. Why shouldn't we try to kill them?" She patted my face and gave me her usual rosy smile. "How silly I am. Of course we have to kill them. It's just that I love animals, and I hate to see any creature killed." What love I had for her. How beautiful she was. Suddenly there was a clamor outside. Our neighbors were outside our door. 2 men, beating a stretcher, doffed their hats as best they could and brought the stretcher in. On it lay another beautiful young girl. This time the leopard had hit the eyes. There were gaping wounds, and down her face were claw marks, red, scarlet, vivid. My wife started to cry. The tears streamed down her face. "How can this happen? Please, Ralph, take me away, please, I beg you." "I'm not used to this cold. I came from Florence, Italy. It's warm and friendly. They have sunny beaches. They have animals. I love animals. And what could I do? That sweet face. All right, we'll go away as soon as this trouble is over." I noticed that she looked at her hands. They were trembling. Then I realized how frightened she was. The snow fell softly. Inside it was very cozy and warm. Outside, as I ministered to the girl, men and women peered through the window. They began to chant. The leopard had come too often. It had taken too many lives. I was a doctor. Could I possibly help them? The girl began to recover. I waved out the window, more or less saying that I would help them. I hoped that it would be less. I bandaged her up. Night was beginning to fall as I finished. Outside there were torchlights flaming through my windows. The crowds had grown. There were sleds, and every man carried a gun. As they beckoned to me, I began to feel worried. I hadn't seen Sonia, my wife, for a full hour. I began to sweat with fear. Had those men outside my windows, those men with the torches, had they frightened her so much that she ran away? I left the girl. I ran through the house. There was no Sonia. Even her coat was gone. Would she go out when a leopard was loose? Quickly, I grabbed my cost. It was a parka, fur-lined, but very warm. I ran out onto my porch. The snow suddenly became pinpoints that hit me through my skin. Where is my wife? My words became muffled by the snow. Where is my wife? They stared at me, eyebrows encrusted, beards laden with ice. She went. They pointed. It was towards the outskirts of the little hamlet where I lived. The parka felt warm as I went out on the porch. My blood was running cold. I knew what had happened. I remember the trembling, the icy fingers. 2 men escorted me to the sled. Then suddenly we were running through the snow. I knew. But don't you always know? It was a big plain. The snow lay deep, but it was silent. As we flew over the snow, wolves started to bay. There was a morass of brush, a few shrubs, and the white trees. Ahead of us there was a clump of brush. A woman stood there, but there was no leopard. I wanted to go on. The villagers beside me began to thump my back. Please, doctor, there is the leopard woman. She brings bad luck. Evil she is. I took my gun. My eyes were strained. All I saw was a beautiful woman. She was dark like my wife, Once again the blood ran through my head. What woman would come out here in the fields of snow and beckon to me? Was it the leopard woman they were talking about? As we neared her, she began to run. The gun was in my hands. My fingers were unsteady, but my eyes weren't. There was an explosion. A limp figure lay on the snow. The sled stopped because I knew. There she was, limp and inert. You know, bad blood may reach out to any of us. It happened in the case of the leopard woman. There was snow all around us. Her dark hair fell like a cascade of ebony over the hardened ice. I bent over her. She was so beautiful. She lifted her hands. On them were claws. I got this from my mother, she gasped. I'm sorry. The leopard blood is in me. I want to kill. There's a bloodlust in my family. Just understand me and love me. Her hands reached up towards my neck. Very quietly, oh, very quietly, I took my gun, and through her forehead I put a bullet. But it was very quiet. The end.
The preceding thrilling story has presented for your enjoyment. This classic work is now in the public domain, making it freely available to be shared and appreciated by all. Some elements may appear outdated or insensitive by today's standards, but we present this work in its original form to preserve its historical context and literary significance. Sit back, relax, and indulge in this timeless tale. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Every bit helps this channel grow. Thank you.